Miss Martin Muses. Welcome to Miss Martin Muses Live, where we talk about what makes me laugh, makes me cry, makes me happy, makes me sad, or just really ticks me off. And today we are talking about something that makes me very, very happy. And it is the book, the novel, The Fellowship of the Ring. I have a fantastic panel with me here today. First off, none other than Lady Gravemaster. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on. I know that we've talked a lot about this, especially over on Father's channel, aspects of the Lord of the Rings, especially the faith aspect of it. But to really zone in on the books, holy moly, this is going to be great. And all the way from Scandinavia, it is none other than the Viking himself, Stig Kenobi.
Hi. Sorry. Hello there.
There we are. Thank you. Hello there. Well, and hello to the people in the chat. Welcome to all those that will be coming and those that will be listening in on the replay. We have Legends of the Bard by C.T. Janes. Hello. We have Ara. Hello, all. And we have Fatal J. Ever notice the Hobbits of the Shire dressed more modern than everyone else in Middle-earth? Why, yes, they did, though that was in the movie. That
it's a fair point, though.
It is a fair point. Absolutely. Now, of course, I'm trying to imagine what they wore in the book, how they were described, if it was consistent or not.
I think it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Very fair point. Fatal J, you have made me think. But let's go ahead and think upon the Fellowship of the Ring and how we first began to read it, how we got introduced to the books, The Lord of the Rings, starting with Stig Kenobi. When did you
No. You should do the lady first, because chivalry is dying, and I want to keep it alive a bit longer.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Thank you. I feel so flattered. Such a gentleman. Follow that example, gents. It's a good one.
Well...
I'm teasing, Miss Martin. I'm teasing.
No, he's absolutely right. But I was actually following someone's advice. His name might rhyme with Stig. That had take turns. That's okay. We will let the lady go first. Lady Gravemaster, How did you first find the Lord of the Rings, all of J.R. Tolkien's epic story?
So I was in 6th grade, and I actually read The Fellowship of the Ring first, and then I saw the Hobbit movie, so I went back and watched the animated movie, and so then I went back and watched the Hobbit animated film. Then I read The Hobbit. Then I reread Fellowship of the Rings, and I watched the animated Lord of the Rings and Return of the King films, the animated films from them. And then, I just fell in love after that. It was so good.
Well, excellent. Yeah, we all have different journeys for that. How about you, Stig? How did you first find him?
Through a friend of mine who pushed me into reading The Lord of the Rings. He and I and quite a few others were reading the Savage Sword of Conan comics, because it said they were for adults. So that means we had to read them. Nothing will tease a kid more if it says it's for adults, right?
True.
And I didn't know fantasy was even a genre, because I had, seen He-Man and all kinds of stuff. I just thought it was normal, just a thing. And it was like, if you like Conan, you need to read the Lord of the Rings and blah, blah, blah. And I finally caved in. I think it was 7th grade. I borrowed them at the school library, actually, and I read them, and I remember being rather upset because book 2 was someone else had borrowed it and didn't return it for 4 months or something.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, but read them in between 7th and 8th grade, I guess, and if I hadn't done it, I would not have about 600 fantasy books in my home.
Wow.
So my friend cost me a lot of money.
Well done. And what you said reminds me of a lot of my childhood, where we were dependent on the school library or even the local library. And if they weren't there, you often didn't get the book. You had to sit and wait for it.
You know what? Before I read The Lord of the Rings, I had watched the BBC Narnia show, which is awesome. It's better than the movies, in my opinion.
Yeah, they were more faithful, I think.
Yeah, they had a really cool theme music, and
yeah, but I still think that like Liam Neeson as Aslan is just like perfect.
Oh yeah, there were great things about the movie for sure.
Was definitely.
I
was
we
like,
love
I wish
Liam
we
Neeson.
could take Liam Neeson's voice and put it in a BBC Narnia.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yes. And well, for me, I was introduced when my brother actually had the Hobbit book. It was when I was a little girl. I think maybe around I was 10 or 11. And so I kind of read it, knew the story. I think I'd even seen the cartoon. And I didn't get to the Lord of the Rings until, my goodness, I was well into college, maybe even a little bit after. I can't remember the exact year, but I had a friend and she was a big geek like me, and she had talked about the Hobbits all the time and the Lord of the Rings and pointed out a lot of the thinking behind the story that J.R. Tolkien had. So I said, oh, what the heck, I'm going to do it. And then around the same time, they announced they were making the movies. So I was like, oh, I need to get these read and read properly. So I did, and holy moly, I just couldn't put those down, all three of them. And ever since, I've just been a very huge fan. That was about 21 years ago. Seems like yesterday. It was it back in 1999 when they started filming them, and it was a very, very exciting time.
Yeah.
There's such richness that J.R. Tolkien put into this, and that's what I wanted to bring around to kickstart this party, as far as the novels and the world building that J.R.R. Tolkien had. I didn't know, Lady Gravemaster, if you wanted to chime in a little bit of what you might like to share with the audience about what he did, like how he went about making this.
So
his whole myth, like the whole thing. Like it wasn't just like he sat down and wrote a story.
I would assume he used a pencil.
Oh, for crying out loud!
Quill and ink as well. He did. He did not. You know, as maybe some people here don't know, but something that is really well known about Tolkien, he did not like the way the modern world was moving. He did not like the direction it was going. He was anti-industrial. Like the industrial world was being built up around him, and you know, what he saw was people sort of losing touch with themselves moving forward, and things becoming, you know, mechanical, and there was less connection with each other, and you know, like that human connection, that human spirit. And you know, when you go through life, when you have life experience, I know this is going to be shocking for some current day, we'll call them writers for lack of a better word, because they're certainly not authors, but they have no life experience. And the way you can tell the difference is when you read J.R.R. Tolkien. It is his ability to make you feel like part of the story, to just sort of envelop you in what is happening, and you can actually visualize what is being shown to you on the page. And you walk this journey with the Fellowship, and you go on these adventures, and you feel Frodo get stabbed, and you feel Sam, his loyalty, and you know, his fraternity with Frodo, and how much he loves and respects him.
Well, that's an excellent point, though, because a good book, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't take place on the page; it takes place in your mind.
Exactly. And I have yet to it speaks about his talent and his abilities when he can make a page off the book, off a page out of a book, come to life. And yet I have watched shows that are less visual than Tolkien's writing. I mean, a perfect example, and is Loki. I don't know if you guys have watched any episodes of that, but they show you nothing and tell you everything.
Yeah.
And so you may as well be listening to the radio in the background, because
it actually breaks writing 101. Show don't tell.
Exactly.
And
and I think I'm sorry, and I was just gonna say, Lady Gravemaster, to that point, what you're saying about how you inhabit it is he spent a great amount of time, years, more than decades, actually doing just the world building of his world, and created languages for it, created cultures, created myths, and he stuck to it. He was very meticulous about that, and we see the fruit.
And I always laugh because people are like, well, how did it all start? Like, what do you think was the beginning of it all? And I said, well, he tells you. He says that he started with the most logical place to begin, a map. So he drew it out in his mind, and then he built. So I would love to see his original, what he started at, and how he built out from that, because what he was not afraid to change things that needed to be changed or scratch things that needed to be scratched. As he was building this world, and as he went through experiences and he lived a life, that's something that I think is also missing today with a lot of books, is he actually has experience to draw from. And a lot of these writers today don't, and you can tell because the way that they're writing is really hollow and shallow, and that's why they have to show you, or they have to tell you, because they don't know how to show you something they've never experienced, and they aren't challenging their imaginations enough to, at least try. Yeah. But with Tolkien, like you said, it was decades of world building, just putting things together, and when people are like, oh my gosh, it's just a story about walking. Those are the people who think that your whole life has to be some kind of action flick, or has to be some kind of, every moment of your life has to matter, or none of it does. Quiet moments happen in life, just like quiet moments happen in quests. There wasn't. I mean, can you imagine if the story had been them being chased by the Nazgul for 3 books and never getting any rest?
And you know what though? Those new people, they're used to participation trophies, so they don't understand that the Fellowship crossing a mountain range or whatever is in itself a big victory. Because that's dangerous as heck. Just the journey is dangerous. It's not all about the orcs they kill.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just gonna say, wow, so many thoughts now I get going through my head. But some of the life events that Lady Gravemaster mentioned was the being orphaned, or his father dying and his mother being very poor and raising them, and they had a great deal of help from a priest. And then he went off to World War I, and he went to hell and back before he even started these stories. And when he got back from World War I, he married the love of his life, had several children, and originally kind of started it for his children, the Hobbit. In the hole in the ground lived a Hobbit, and that's where the conception of the whole epic came from. And Stieg, to your point about the participation trophies, there are no participation trophies in here because that was not his world. That just really opened up something in my brain here. And that's also perhaps why this is still such a masterpiece that's composed to what they're creating today is because the characters also get participation trophies. They show up and all of a sudden they're the bestest ever. They don't earn it.
Yeah,
I was there.
You see it clearly in the new Star Wars movies, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go
ahead.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, and saying about that's what made the movies so good on so many different levels of the adaptations of these, is it was before this stuff really, really hit hard in our entertainment. Go ahead, Lady Gravemaster.
Oh yeah, no, I was sort of going to echo that same point. It's just, when you look at, and we don't even really have to go that far back. When you look at films from the early 2000s, which, that's only 20 years ago, and because Hollywood moves so slow, as we all know, when it comes to trends and different things, that's really not that long in Hollywood talk. But when you look back at what was made in like 2005, 2006, it's a completely different world. You had characters, you had comedy that was funny. You had action films that, if you get shot by 6 bullets, you're dead. You're not like, it's not like it magically missed you or it nicked your rib and you're going to be fine. Like my biggest gripe is just how we went from faithful adaptations, because it's what the fans love this thing for a reason. So we're going to faithfully adapt it so that they'll come and see what we've done for them, and then we'll earn money and the fandom will grow, and this IP I know it's all about money for them, or at least it used to be. Now, I don't even know if you can say that it's about I don't know if you can even say that it is about money at this point, or agenda, because there's such a ridiculousness coming out of Hollywood that I don't even know what the point of it all is anymore. Like, it used to be, oh, we go to the movies to escape and have fun.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And I think that what digs down so rich and deep for Tolkien is maybe because of when he lived and how he did and how he was able to translate it to the stage to a novel. But there were 2 key instances. I already mentioned, like, where the Hobbit just kind of came out of, which was in the hole there was a Hobbit. And then there was a letter. I did a little video about it where someone was like, hey, do some more about the Hobbit. And he was saying, should I do Bilbo? And then he goes, wait a second. Someone said maybe I should do something about that necromancer thing that just kind of came out of nowhere. And boom, that's how he came to the whole thing with Sauron, and a passing incident that occurred with Gollum and Bilbo getting the ring. It germinated into this big epic. He inhabited his world, and it was as though the characters started speaking to him, and out of that he developed the concept of the Lord of the Rings. And when we open up the novel, when the novel opens up, you see that what seemed like a very small incident in The Hobbit, where Bilbo had the ring and it made it disappear, helped him to escape, that it has changed him. And as it opens up, we learn that he's lived an unnaturally long life, and that he's essentially kind of trying to get rid of that. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how this story opens up and sets the stage for what will become the Fellowship of the Ring, starting off very small. Steve, did you maybe have anything you wanted to add about how the story was introduced, those first 3 chapters or so of when we're introduced to the Bilbo of the Lord of the Rings versus the Bilbo of the Hobbit?
Well, I think the first 3 chapters are kind of slow. They're in Hobbiton, and it's almost like a family story, right?
Mm-hmm.
if they weren't named hobbits, you wouldn't even have much of a fantasy aspect going on, you know. But yeah, I most fantasy books wouldn't do that today. Take the time to have a few chapters like that. Just set up the hobbits. Set up, how they are. How their world is, because then you'll show. Well, later on, the viewer or reader would know that shit. They have like a perfect life and they're leaving it behind.
Yeah.
The only one I've that I can remember that has done that. Well, actually, a couple. You have Raymond Feist does it in Magician, and Robert Jordan in The Wheel of Time. First chapters are takes place at a Hobbiton-like place. Yeah, I guess.
And it centers on a birthday party, so that was a perfect setting to introduce all the characters and the culture and what they've all been up to. Which I thought was cool, like this, all the little rivalries and the cousins and Sam and of course little Frodo, who, as opposed to the movies, he is actually much older, or he becomes much older because a lot of time does pass in those opening chapters.
You know what's weird? I keep seeing writing tips from fantasy writers, right? And a lot of them tend to, give the same tips, which is probably why they got published in the first place, because they know the basics. But I've seen a lot of them say that you have to start with action, throw the reader right in to the action, right? I'm like, Tolkien didn't do that.
Nope. And it was a lot of singing and food.
Yeah.
See, that was the hook for me. Food. I like food. I like food a lot.
I know. I was reading some of these, and I was so hungry.
Well, and it's just funny because when you look at because when I love when Pip is like, what about second breakfasts and afternoon, and he goes off and just lists all of the things, and I was like, oh my god, he's my spirit animal. Like, I'm a hobbit, because oh, elves are so ethereal and beautiful, and look at how graceful they are, and everybody's like, I want to be an elf, and then they're like, they can, they're great archers or they're great warriors, and they're like, oh well, the men have all of the, and I'm over here like, man, I don't know about you, but I really want to be a hobbit, like eat all day, garden, this sounds like the life to me for sure.
Sing songs all day. Yeah,
absolutely. Actually, I kind of live in a hobbit hole. Half my apartment is underground under a hill, and it's full of books and food.
I
know where I'm going. All right.
Party at Steeg's, everyone. Everything that you just said is exactly like, and you fall in love with the Hobbit culture again. And Gandalf comes in as kind of that outsider that's kind of otherworldly. Some are suspicious of him, but you see the children just sitting there waiting, hoping he'll have fireworks. And they were just staring at the door for hours, and then finally just kind of walked away. Oh, he's not going to do the fireworks. But it also shows that the way they view the outsiders, and that Gandalf and elves, as we're going to see later with Sam, it's like they're in their own myth. And after Bilbo leaves after the party, you see that Frodo slowly starts to inhabit the effects of what happened to Bilbo. This became a bit of a controversial topic that it shouldn't have been, when a certain fan site that shall not be named tried to say, well, the real reason why Frodo never married and all that. But it's very clear in these chapters. He goes to a great deal of detail to show that once the ring came into possession by Frodo.
You know what they actually said?
Okay, say it.
They said that gay people are junkies. That's what they meant, the effect of what they said.
It was very, very condescending.
Yes.
Yeah. Because Frodo is a junkie to the ring already. He doesn't know it.
Yeah.
You know, but the ring is
Right.
affecting him.
And that's the thing too. Like that's I liked how Gary over at Nerdrotics actually put it. He's like, besides his pipe tobacco, he's not aware that Tolkien had any kind of addiction or anything, but he writes it perfect because it like the ring, like it is an addiction. Where I disagree with Gary is that's what it is complete. Like that's all that it is. It's not an addiction in the same way that, yes, when you get addicted to alcohol or drugs or certain things, it becomes your life. It consumes you. It's everything and anything. You will do whatever it takes to get it. It doesn't matter who you hurt. It doesn't matter what you have to do. You will do it just to get that next fix. The difference when it comes
power corruption.
Yes. So like exactly the difference with the ring, because especially in the books, like the movies, the films sort of alluded to this, but in the books especially, the ring is very much like alive in a way. Like it's very heavily indicated that it is so powerful that it's almost as if it has a soul that's corrupt. Like, they talk about how he poured his malice, his hate, his cruelty into it. And so you have to wonder, like, is this part of, like, is this a piece of Sauron's soul that is actually, like, it almost gives a living entity to the ring almost, that it not quite a consciousness, but then you're like, oh, well, the ring made this decision. Like, it abandoned Gollum in the cave, and and then Bilbo happened.
It's like a presence.
Exactly. And so in the
oppressive.
Yes. So in the books, you're very much led into the idea that the ring is so powerful that it could almost be viewed as alive, but it can't act as its own agent because it is just a ring. And so that's why they say it only has one master. It will only listen to Sauron. Anybody else that puts it on is basically inviting Sauron to corrupt them and take over their soul so that they can be an agent for his purposes and for the ring. And
it's almost like possession.
Yes.
In a way, a little bit, yes, but you still have free will. But you're
or
correct.
or like an illness.
It battles with you. Yes, and so it battles with you, and so like I said, this is where I sort of disagree with Gary at this point. I've never gone through, any kind of addiction like that, but from what I have seen and what I do know, there are people who have a strong enough will to like break with that addiction, and then they never go back. Like, they have to live their lives without, like, almost like a separate person of themselves, where the ring never fully lets, like, you're never free of the ring. Sort of, I guess you're never free of the addiction either, but you're now able to live a life, basically. But like Frodo and Bilbo, I mean, look at all Gollum, Frodo, and Bilbo. None of them could actually live a life. None of them could actually do anything after the ring abandoned them or left them or was eventually destroyed. Like, they were never able to actually live a life after that.
Yeah. And what you just said brought to mind, Lady Gravemaster, the fact that Frodo was living with the ring for, I believe, 20 years before he started his quest. So it wasn't just he was with it for a little bit. He actually lived with it for a great deal of time. And that's also a part of it as well. Because you will see people like Sam, who has it just for a teeny tiny little bit, and it doesn't quite have the same effect. But it was a part of his daily life. Was it 20 years or 30 years? It was a long time. He was 50 when he left.
Yeah, I think it was 30.
He was 20 during the birthday party.
Yeah, he was 20
Yeah, so
would
what
you
you
agree if I said that the ring, being next to Frodo for that long, it's almost like a spiritual radiation sickness, as if the ring is made radioactive with evil. in a sense.
That makes sense.
That's a
Like
good
its
analogy.
essence.
Yeah. And I think the closest that Tolkien has to letting us know what it feels like is when Bilbo says, like, not enough butter spread across too much bread. Like, I forget the exact wording. They used it in the movie as well.
Yeah.
Stretched like that.
He feels thin. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good analogy. Both of those are great. I love this kind of stuff. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that in the chat, we are having some really good conversations. People are saying what they would like, why they would like elves, hobbits. Justin Proper's here. Frodo is the GOAT. Loads of people saying hi to each other and some great conversation. You guys, I love you.
Well,
Thank you so much. And if you wouldn't mind
well,
while you're here to slap a like.
just to chime in, the dwarves are of course the superior race.
Oh.
Even in D&D, they get a bonus to their hit points.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Sultan said
Fair.
for their hit points. And they're great beards. Yes, they're great beards. Sultan, he was saying he wanted to be elf because of their knowledge. And I believe I lost the comment. The chat jumped on me, but about the someone else said for their immortality as well. Sorry if I'm I think it was Zax who said that. So yes, this is good stuff right here. Thank you everyone for being in here. And the running. Yeah, that they were definitely epic runners and walkers. And so once Frodo finally takes off and heads out, there's a really cool encounter that you don't see in the movie so much. You see the elves from a difference in the extended edition, but that Frodo and Sam and Pippin and Merry spend a night hanging out with the elves, especially speaking with an elf named Gildor. I don't know if that's fresh in your memories, but I reread that chapter this week and I just forgot how much we learn about the elves in those, and that Sam in particular gets very touched by the elves, almost, if you would forgive me, touched by an angel.
The elves touched Sam, confirmed. Now it's
okay, now it had to get dirty.
The Gildor chapter, though, that's the first time I ever, read about a classic fantasy elf.
Mm-hmm.
And I distinctly remember, playing those old role-playing games on the PC, usually based on Dungeons and Dragons back in the 90s and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Always had an elf in my party called Gildor because you could name your whole characters, all of your characters back then.
Yeah.
Usually.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, Gildor became it's been a thing for, I don't know, a long time. It just stuck in my head.
That's awesome. I mean, and I loved Gildor, and they're saying about dirty things about touching in the chat. Yes, okay, I meant symbolically touched, all right, and it did affect him, and it affected Sam so much that he remembered that as one of the most profound encounters of his life. And when you consider what's going to be happening in the Lord of the Rings, the fact that is what was burned into his brain is pretty profound. And one of the things that happened in his conversation with the elves was they told him that you have to stick with Frodo and that he was going to play a role with them, and that Sam had almost the gift of prophecy where he saw that something dark was going to be happening and that how it was going to affect him and affect Frodo. And he said he was never the same after that, Sam. And every time I keep talking about that, it sounds dirtier.
I don't think you could be, though. Like, I mean, I don't mean this in like a dirty way or anything, but I don't think after you have an encounter like that, especially when, because see, and this is another thing that I love about Tolkien, because he doesn't do allegory, he does applicability. But I always, one of the ways that it always seemed to me was, the Shire was sort of like him, and then everything else that happens is like that. Like I was talking, like the invasion of the industrial world and the modernization and everything like that. And so you have to like leave your comfortable bubble, because the world is going to, like, in the books they make it really clear too, like, if you don't go out and do this, it's going to come to the Shire, and then it'll be too late. You won't be able to stop it. And so I always look at the Lord of the Rings as sort of his not attack per se, but his counter to the industrial and modernizing world, because it's something that you can't really touch no matter what Amazon tries to do. At, like, you know, there's been so many things flying around about their series that's coming out, but no matter what they do, they will never be able to touch his actual literary work. And I think what Stieg and I were like really, because I know we both got blocked by that particular website on their Twitter.
Didn't take much either.
No, it didn't. And I said
crap.
nothing. I said nothing that was untrue. I didn't say it cruelly. I wasn't like mocking them or anything. I simply pointed out the fallacy in what they were saying. But then someone was like, "Oh, well, Frodo was 50 when he left the Shire, and you know, so he was well past marrying age." And I was like, and that's when it started to like dawn on me. I'm sure there are plenty at that particular website place that have read the books. I'm sure that there are, but whomever they have running their social media has not read the books.
No,
because
it's probably some diversity hire that watched the movies and
I think they watched the films and they thought that was enough. But you miss, I mean, Tom Bombadil is nowhere in the films. And so like,
no.
If, you know, so if you bring that up and they're like, well, and it's interesting, you can always tell who has only seen the film. And I'm not knocking people who've only watched the films. I understand reading epics is not for everyone. But when you try to make it seem like you have read the books and you've only seen the movies, you know, and so you talk about like, I don't even remember when, Just Some Guy did a video on it when they're like, oh, well, Tolkien never actually described what his characters look like. And like the first thing that popped into my head was Tom Bombadil. I'm like, blue jacket, yellow boots. Like you can't, like, could you imagine if Tom Bombadil had been in the films and they had put him in like a green jacket and black boots? There would have been riots. It would have been bad. It would have been so bad.
Christopher Lee would have pointed it out.
Yes, Christopher Lee would have. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. He was.
You know what though?
Oh,
they made an excellent case for not having him in the movies, because I watched the behind the scenes stuff, and they said they wanted him in, but they had just spent an hour explaining to the audience that don't mess with the ring, and then if you have Tom Bombadil showing up and juggling the ring, it'll destroy what they built. And I thought that was a good case.
Yeah, especially when you're doing a movie adaptation. But that's a great segue, Stieg. Let's talk about Tom Bombadil. Who and what was he? That chapter is fascinating as can be.
Isn't it?
Just go. I mean, whoever wants to jump in, I don't know, Lady or Stieg. Tom Bombadil. ...
Okay, so because in the book, for anybody that hasn't read it, they just got chased and basically cursed by a Barrow Wight. And, you know, when you meet Tom, you're like, who is this bombacious, obviously flamboyant? I mean, he's in a blue jacket and yellow boots. Like, that breaks every fashion rule that exists. I think, honestly, Tom Bombadil was Tolkien having some fun, is what I personally think. He wanted to, you know, like, have that sort of, I don't know, like that break. Like I was talking about, could you imagine if they were being chased by the Nine or the Nazgul, like for the entire 3 books, and they never rested, you know? And so I think like Tom Bombadil is sort of that sort of break where it's comedy, but also you're like intrigued because he's always been like, nobody knows where he came from. He's just always been there as far as anybody knows. And
I always thought he was kind of Tolkien adding a little bit of mythology to Middle Earth itself, uh, kind of like with the Ents, you know.
Good point. Yeah. Well, and I've read commentary that of the applicability of it to the Garden of Eden, and that's part of the reason why wasn't corrupted by the ring and was able to juggle it, because it was like he was embodying a place where the fall hadn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just he's such a fascinating character because it's in the middle of, in the middle of this chase, and they're in a place they don't know. They're the furthest, this is the furthest from home I've ever been, so they're stepping out, and when Bilbo went, he was accompanied, like, there were dwarves, there was a map, there was a plan, there was like all of these things. All of these guys know is they're like, hey, we need to get to Rivendell. Well, they're not even trying to get to Rivendell, they're just trying to get to the Prancing Pony at that point. So they don't even know that they're going to Rivendell at that point, and so they've sort of just been like cast into the sea with no compass or sextant or anything, and they're just they are a ship in the wind, just going wherever it may take them, and kind of know where they're trying to get, but how to get there, they're like, meh. And so it's really fascinating to see that sort of different dynamic. And so in the midst of all this fear of them being chased, of them being fearful of where it is that they're trying to get to, why it is that Gandalf didn't come and didn't meet them, and what it is that they're exactly doing. There's all of this uncertainty. There's all like these books do get heavy in parts, but like in the middle of all of that, Tom Bombadil just comes like blowing out of nowhere and is just, he's fun. Like, I don't really know how else to like put it. He's just, he dances and he has fun with all of it, really.
Would you agree if I said that Donald Pleasance would have made a very good Tom Bombadil?
I talked with you before, Steve, about this. I would definitely. He would be a perfect casting.
It's the guy who plays Dr. Loomis on Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he would be great.
Sadly passed away though. But I always pictured Tom Bombadil as a bit like him because he has that pleasant face.
Yes, haha, pleasant. Yeah,
yeah.
Unintentional. Are you with us, lady?
Yeah, no, I'm looking. I don't know who that is, so I was trying to look him up.
Oh, my bad. Oh, you're good. That's for Halloween. I didn't mean to call you out like that. I just want to make sure you're okay. Yeah. While we take this commercial break, Lady Toriel, yay! Thank you for coming. I hope all is well and you're on the mend. Very good, interesting talk. Thank you, and I appreciate you being here. Get lots of rest. Yeah, we love her.
Hi, Toriel.
Yeah, but if they were to do it at some time, and if you could bring him back to life, though that would be wrong. Donald Pleasance would be a perfect one because he also has enough of that presence of being a bit otherworldly and just not knowing WTF. I think someone said in the chat, it jumped ahead, that even Tolkien felt a bit of a mystery around Bomba. I can't say his name. I don't know what's wrong with my tongue today. Bombadil is Tom
Isn't there
B.
a short story about him?
Yeah, yes. It's a poem, I think.
Okay.
It's technically a poem.
Yes.
Yes, but there is. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Donald. Sorry, I was. I know who we're talking about. Yes, I agree with that casting. By the way, yeah. I know that I'm late to that party. But
it was an unexpected party anyway.
No, he would be a good casting. When So this might seem a bit strange, I guess, but I always thought that like John Candy would make a good Tom Bombadil.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
because it's similar to the character in that he plays in in almost everything basically, but like in Planes, Trains, and gosh, is that the one that I'm thinking? Yeah, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. He's just like all of this stuff is going wrong, but he's just been like, I've been tried. Like he just smiles through it. You know what I mean? So I always thought that John Candy might actually be a really good cat. Like I know he's not. I don't think he's British anyway. I think he's Canadian. I don't know if that counts.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah.
But,
Well, they're part of the Commonwealth.
yeah, but I always thought John Candy would have been a good casting for Tom Bombadil. But yeah, no, I think Pleasance would have also been a good choice. I think like it just breaks my heart that I know that John Candy passed away before the films were ever made, but I had always thought that he would have been a good Bombadil.
Yeah.
He passed away trying to save his cat, I think, from a fire. He died from the he got a heart attack afterwards from the
because I knew he died of a heart attack.
Yeah, from the stress and the smoke inhalation all came in.
Yeah.
My gosh. Well, the whole chapter, was it chapter 7, in the House of Tom Bombadil? There, I got it. I love it. I mean, and his wife or whatever, the way they describe her long yellow hair rippled down her shoulders. Her gown was green as young reeds, shot with silver like beads of dew, and her belt was of gold, shaped like a chain of flag lilies set with pale blue eyes of forget-me-nots. I love this man Tolkien. The way he is able to paint that picture, and we just know that it's just like with the elves, you felt like you were in another world. You're just stepping into this house. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Goldberry.
Exactly. Yeah.
Daughter of the river. Wait, did I mess it up? That's his wife. Oh gosh.
Yeah, no, Goldberry's his wife. You're right.
No, okay, just making sure. I'm like, oops. Yeah, it's like
yeah, no, and like it's I don't know, like I was always when I read about Goldberry and Tom and their marriages, I was like, that's so sweet. It reminds me of my grandparents. And it wasn't that I was envisioning, Goldberry and Bombadil to be old, even though, like, obviously you find out Bombadil is basically immortal and has existed forever because you're not given any, like, all he tells you is that when these things started to appear, Bombadil was already there. So you know that he's ancient. But he has, like, the soul, like he has the soul of a child. I mean, he still loves what's around him. He's not fallen into the same, and I'm probably going to catch a lot of hate for this, but he's not fallen into the same prideful and arrogant sense that the elves have. It's they especially, like, I know in the films they do allude to it, but especially when it comes to Aragorn and Arwen and like, oh, well, you'll outlive him forever and you'll have to watch him die even if he lives to be an old man, which he technically already is. But that aside, he in the books, they really emphasize how they are long-lived and how they've held back the tide of darkness and how it's the age of elves because this and that. And, the age of the elves the time of the elves is over because, it's come to a point where they've either all sacrificed themselves holding back the darkness, or they've all become so weary of the world that they've left it. And it's like, why couldn't y'all just be like Tom Bombadil? He's still happy. He's been here longer.
Yeah, well, and it even says in the book, if you're following along, kids at home, in page 160, that when he was talking to Goldberry, who's of the same cloth, obviously, as Tom, he said he felt as enchanted as he was by fair elven voices, but the spell that was now laid upon him was different, less keen and lofty was the delight, but nearer and deeper to mortal heart, marvelous and yet not strange.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. And then he couldn't help himself and he burst into song. And he almost got embarrassed.
What is life without music, I say?
Yeah, he started going like, was it, oh, slender as a willow wand, oh, clearer than clear heart. It's like he didn't know what was wrong with him.
Did you know Christopher Lee and some others did one or two Tolkien CDs where they're singing the Tolkien songs?
Oh.
I knew that Christopher Lee did.
Yeah.
Wow.
Christopher Lee is singing the Treebeard song, I believe. And
oh, nice! I need to find these. See, this is the other thing that I love.
Oh, you can find them on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, I will. Like, this is the other thing that I love about the Lord of the Rings, because the lore and the history and everything is so deep and so rich. You will never know it all. Like, you can delve and you can dive and you can read everything there is, and you will still learn new things, and you will still see new perspectives on it. And it's so wonderful. And it's one more thing to just love about Tolkien's writing, because especially depending on who you empathize with and who you sympathize with through the book. Like, for example, if you are relating mostly to Sam and you go and you see it through Sam's perspective and Sam's lens, it's actually kind of a tragic story, because you tried so hard to save your best friend, and in the end it wasn't enough. You were able to bring his body back, but at some point, like, souls can get so damaged that there's just not really anything you can do except be there for them as long as they need you. And so it's kind of like, yes, he gets, he marries Rosie, they have kids, like, that's all fantastic, that's all wonderful, but it is sort of a tragic story, because in the end he does lose Frodo to the travesties of what happened. But if you read it from someone like Arwen's perspective, it's, I'm not going to say like all roses and sunshine, but she does end up with the man that she loves. He comes out relatively unscathed. I mean, this isn't the first war that he's fought in. This isn't the first battle he's done. This isn't the first challenge he's faced. He's sort of been he has a different metal flowing through him. He's made of a bit stronger stuff. And this is, he was created sort of for surviving conflicts like this and holding things together. And, that's where he and Frodo differ. Frodo stepped up. I mean, they all stepped up, but Frodo sort of, like, again, he sort of just fell into the role and he took up that mantle. And because of the support of his friend, because, I mean, and Tolkien has said this himself, Sam is the real hero in the book. Like, if we're going to be honest, because Frodo fails. He falls under the ring spell, under its influence. He fails. So had it not been for Sam, first of all, Frodo would have been dead many times over, thanks to Gollum or Smeagol, if you want to, but when you're reading the book, if you look at it from Arwen's perspective, she's not necessarily shielded from most of the heartache, especially in Return of the King. She's there, she's witnessing this, but again, she's pretty ancient. This isn't anything that's really new to her, but she is able to, be with Aragorn at the end. Like, they're able to marry and fall in love, and I'm assuming rule over a prosperous Gondor and start rebuilding and really focusing on the Age of Men. So
but of course she has her tragic ending, though, because once he dies, she can't deal with it.
We don't talk about that.
Okay.
No,
they live happily
ever after. See, there you go. That's all. That's where we're ending.
Hey, we're past the point of spoilers, but yeah, there is a part of me that in my head kind of pretends I didn't read that.
Yeah, I know. I always just sort of like hop over them. I'm like,
happy. They were
they just
love.
walked. Yeah, they sailed off into the far, like they just sailed off together. Like we're just gonna nope.
Yeah,
But like
they
that's
went
actually
to live on a farm.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, this might be the best chat comment so far. Arwen is a cradle snatcher.
I mean,
She is
not
though.
wrong. She is.
She's like a MILF.
Oh. Yikes. I mean, she definitely robbed that cradle. But to be fair, I mean...
Well, when Eowyn had the hots for Aragorn, she was having the hots for Grandpa.
Yeah, but he... So, like, this
he was 80. She was...
Yeah, 87. He was 87.
Oh, and well, if you think about it, in the Hobbit movie, Toriel was way, way older than Killy.
Oh yeah, she was the ultimate cradle robber.
Oh, you and I are gonna have a discussion about. I do love you, Lady T, but like I'm not happy with what they did with your character in the film when it came to Keely. Like, had that been left out, I would have been okay. But yeah, no. But yeah, it's interesting, it's intriguing, but also if you remember, like even Tolkien came from a time where it wasn't uncommon for young women to marry older men or vice versa, especially if they were like if it's a wealthy widow and it's some mid-20s young gentleman who he's probably like, if we're going to be real here, people married for money all the time. They still do.
Yeah.
But especially back then, huh?
Crap, I could have done that.
You could have done that.
Damn
now.
it.
No backsies.
You still have time to marry for money. Yeah, no, and I know exactly what you're talking about, but 87, I'm exaggerating, obviously, because he was the men of Numenor or whatever. Like, their age was a relative thing in the story.
And see, here's what Tolkien was able to do that current writers are not able to do. It's the age difference that's made apparent is not exactly, it's not made out to be a problem in the books. Thank you, Lady T. But it's just something to consider because of, again, the life experience and the wisdom that these other individuals have gone through. So like Eowyn has, it's not like Rohan is doing great. It's definitely a struggling kingdom, but for the most part, she's not seen horrors of war. She's not been through invasions and plights and stuff like that. Yes, her parents are, like, I'm not saying that she doesn't have a tragic life or anything like that. Please don't mistake me for that. But as far as when you compare that to what her uncle, what the king has been, what her uncle has seen, what her uncle has been through, what all these old
Eowyn has basically just been told about war and probably read about it, right? That's it. But almost as soon as she picks up a sword, she has to do a big bad boss fight.
Yeah, true. But and to get ahead of ourselves, I'll throw in there, and then she's like, "Never mind, I'll be a wife and I'll be a healer and I'll make a little garden. Thank you."
Yeah, that's why all these people who are like bloodthirsty and like war hungry, yeah, it's one thing to read about it. Like, I know this is not going to make sense to a lot of people, but war in books gets romanticized a lot. And yes, it's and I do understand that from strife and misery and plight, you have heroes who rise from the ashes and sort of pick up the pieces. But I don't think people really understand what that means. And I don't think even, when you talk to even some of the nurses who worked in like World War I and World War II, and you read some of what they've written, it's like they say that they would never, they could never go and take bodies off of the battlefield like the men do. They never want to see, like, what they're seeing in the tents is enough horror for them. Yeah. And I don't think, I don't think that people actually realize it's not like you get shot and can respawn somewhere. Like, you drop and your body doesn't move until it either decays or someone comes and takes you away.
Yeah. As an aside, my grandfather, he fought in World War II, fought across Normandy and all the way, and he saw the day that they liberated Dachau. He was at the concentration camp. He wasn't the ones that liberated it. He was driving the convoy and saw for the first time that they even saw. That's all he ever told me. He said, we saw then what the Nazis had done to the Jews. So he said they knew they were doing something terrible. But that was only a few times that he would actually talk about World War II and about the fighting and what he saw. And I tried to interview him before he passed. And he said, no, I will not talk about it. He said, you can have all my letters once I pass. And I did. I got his letters and I'm going through them. But it's like, no, I will not talk about it. And I wasn't going to be that jerk that was going to say, oh, come on. But all he told me, but that's all I got out of him was that and a few other things. But no, he wouldn't.
Yep. It's something that, Tolkien, I think, especially when Theoden King, when he does die and Éowyn is like cradling him and just like, you can tell she broke. Like you can tell, like, this isn't what because from what she had heard, like, war is the heroes win, they kill the bad guys, they come home victorious, and it's.
Or she saw it as an escape. She saw it as an escape for what her life was.
Yeah, so she could become this hero. She could earn this respect. She could be something more than just the king's niece or the princess. You know what I mean? She's more than just this delicate lady. And she was taught how to use a sword, and they talk about how you can still die by the sword even if you don't live by one, which is true. But there's a big difference between fighting a war and self-defense. Mm-hmm. And I think the big thing for her, of course, like I said, is when she's cradling Theoden King, and he actually, like, when you read it in the books, it hits you. Like, you actually feel Theoden King passing. Like, you're weeping with, at least I was, with Éowyn. And it's...
The horrors of war, though, and how it affects even the countryside, right? It's actually something I always thought George Martin was great at, because that's what he does is insanely accurate. Not to compare the two, but it's they might have a shared gene when it comes to that.
Yeah. All he has to do is finish it, and then he will definitely have a shared gene. Yeah.
George Martin doesn't count until he's finished the work.
Precisely.
It's not going to happen.
And, everything that you're saying here, Lady Gravemaster, just brings me back to kind of what we're reading in here is with the Tom Bombadil. Everything about it is just so cool, so awesome, so carefree. Even their pillows are, I'm reading here, made of wool. They're eating, they're singing, and it's a happy place, almost like a heaven on earth. Could this have also come out of his longing for maybe a perfect place on earth after having he went through hell? I don't want to put him on the psych couch, but I am.
I would imagine it's, when you're in the trenches or whatever, to kind of think back on better times. And I think a lot of soldiers back then suffered from nostalgia, which was a diagnosis back then, right?
Yeah.
And it seems to be that they got stuck in the past where things were better. Life was better.
Because you can't ever go, like, it, it's in the books too. Like, when you, in your heart, you begin to understand there is no going back. So what I think Tom Bombadil really offers is, because even when there's wars raging and there's evil in the world happening and brewing, and there's all of this pain and suffering, there's still bastions of happiness. Good things still happen too. And, you know, Bombadil sort of offered that escape and showing that, you know, if you, no matter what you, because you know he's seen it all. So, and yet he chooses to live happily and to enjoy life and enjoy the world. The thing is, you know, when you're in like when you're away from home, all you do is dream about home. And then when you get back, when you're at home, all you dream about is going back because you feel like the sense of guilt of the people who are there instead of you. And sort of what they're going through. And then you're like, you know, why am I sitting here eating, you know, chicken and drinking beer or wine or whatever and chatting with family when I've got brothers who are, you know, laying down their lives right now. Like, how is this fair? And that's a big part of where like life isn't fair comes from. And I think what a lot of people tend to forget is, you know, that misery, that thinking it'll swallow you whole. And so to find that escape is imperative. And so that's what Bombadil offers, that sort of untouched innocence and that sort of separate bastion of happiness that you need to look for.
Wow. I think some writer, I can't remember who it was, and well, it might have been a philosopher too, that said nostalgia is the cruelest death anyone can ever experience. Because you're constantly thinking about something you lost and wanting it back. So imagine living with that for 50, 60 years, right?
Yeah.
Yep. That, I mean, it got Bilbo. Like, look, he wanted to go back to the Lonely Mountains. He wanted to go back on adventures. And, you know, so that's a common thread. I wouldn't say so much a theme, but definitely a thread throughout the entire story.
Wow. This is deep crap. And looking at my book here, this is, I think, the last moment we really have of this kind of complete otherworldliness in the book until, well, I guess they go off into the West. I mean, there's moments like at Rivendell and all that, but you
could argue that Mordor is otherworldly too. It's basically hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay, good otherworldly. It's almost like they're gathering up to give it a spiritual significance, graces or something, just fortify them for what's about to come. Because soon after this, they're going to face.
You know, it's kind of interesting that Rivendell is the mirror image of Mordor.
Ooh.
So they basically go to heaven and they're taught how to get to hell. You know.
Interesting. And then, of course, when they stop off with Galadriel.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a scene from the movie that's cut. There was supposed to be an orc fight when they reached Lothlorien, and you see it in the first teaser because you see Legolas is in front of Boromir because you see the shield on his back, and Legolas turns around and fires an arrow. And they're in the forest, and it's from the Lothlorien stuff. It was never, it didn't make it to the movie.
Yes,
the orcs were chasing them from Moria.
Oh,
yeah.
And
that's why they were.
Sorry, yeah, that's where they do that. And we actually have 3 encounters. I'm thinking this is the third one before they get chased by the Ringwraiths again, and meet Strider. We have where they meet up with Gildor. They meet up with the Farmer Maggot. We kind of skipped over that. And then Tom Bombadil. I mean, there's good stuff in the Farmer Maggot one, but I think that the other 2 are more.
You know what?
Intense.
I grew up on an island that looks like the Shire, right? You've seen the pictures, right? It's and I've kind of experienced that thing where you get invited in to an old guy that you've done pranks to and whatever. that has literally happened to me. Me and 2 friends got invited in to him and his wife, and we got dinner and talked and stuff. And he was like, you know, you don't have to try and blow up my mailbox every winter, right? Yeah. So I've actually that chapter. You know, we used to at night sneak over to farmers and stuff and steal apples or whatever, because it was a bit of an adventure, right? And yeah, that one I could identify with that chapter big time. I've literally been there.
Oh my gosh. Well, here I am being the big jerk, not seeing anything there, and you had a totally speaking it to you. That's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh no, it's fine.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, you should
You
have
tried to blow up people's mailboxes?
quite often.
Oh
And
my! I knew you did.
at one point we succeeded. We even blew up the rack it was attached to and 2 other mailboxes.
Oh my
But
gosh!
yeah, during Christmas, I believe we had to flee. Old guy who owned the mailboxes got in his car and he was hunting us for 2 or 3 hours.
Oh my god!
Yeah, even the
My
road
goodness.
was on fire because we had used gasoline and all kinds of stuff in that bomb we made. So yeah, it's legendary.
That's a word for it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Farmer Maggot and them stealing the carrots. Actually, stealing the carrot sounds a lot better than what you all did. My gosh, you blew up the street.
Oh, we've done worse than that, but let's not get into that though.
I mean, I've played mailbox baseball. I've never played mailbox bomb ball though. Like, good God.
I've played poop ball.
Oh,
Yeah, I
no.
knew about poop ball.
Snowball with a brown core. You throw it in people's windows. Anyway, we
Well,
were
no.
10 or something, so it's not something I still do. We didn't have PlayStations back then. We had to make doo-doo.
Very nice. Oh my gosh. Well, that's some deep stuff here. Gosh, and I love Tom Bombadil, obviously, but everything about him and Goldberry and the food, and he even sings them away with a song. Was it Ha Tom Bombadillo by Water, Wood, and Hill by Reed and Willow by Fire, Sun, and Moon? Hearken now and hear us. Come, Tom Bombadil, for our need is near us, and sings him on his way.
A perfect ending to that chapter would have been Pippin turning around, looking at Tom Bombadil and go, "Do you ever shut up?"
Larry Toriel. Stieg is part Mary and Pippin. Yes, he is, and more. Oh my gosh, Justin Proper. We put firecrackers in the golf ball cleaners on courses.
Wow.
Why?
Dang, I didn't do any of that. I was like, being a good little girl.
Yeah. I stand with Justin on this. He did nothing wrong. What he did was make a childhood memory, which is important.
Yeah.
Golf balls be damned.
Yeah.
Oy vey.
Yeah. Well, sort of poopus. Q Burr is saying, given that Morgoth was essentially Satan and Sauron was originally his servant, Mordor was an imitation of hell on earth. Yes. And this touches a little bit on what Tolkien called the applicability of Lord of the Rings with his Catholic faith. He always insisted it was a Catholic work, but he didn't want it to be allegorical. And there are many parts in these chapters that I recognize as being a practicing Catholic about when you're in the presence of the elves and some of the imagery that you'll see in the imagery with Tom Bombadil, and particularly when Gildor says, may Elbereth look after you. Elbereth is a applicable image of what the Blessed Virgin Mary is to them, and where this veil is kind of peeking through. and going with where Tolkien was, having been to hell and back in the war, he very much found a foundation and root in his life within his practice of the faith, and in the mass especially, where every time you go into mass, you're like being taken into another world. We have all these symbols, like where you have to dip your hands into holy water and all that. So this idea of kind of not creeping through, but pulling aside that veil for just a few minutes of respite, I think is very applicable to these, considering what's going to be coming next.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's interesting. So, I mean, there's no doubt that Morgoth was evil through and through. Like, but when you read it and when you realize that Morgoth never accomplished what Sauron was able to, I think. I don't know. Like, this is actually a discussion that I've had before. Like, do you think that Morgoth is closer to aligning with the devil, or do you think Sauron is? And I'm honestly a little bit torn, because I mean, anybody that's read creationism in the Bible and sort of understand, you don't have to be a practicing Catholic to know those stories, but it certainly helps. Because as you probably know, Miss Martin, like we definitely go over those in length, but being that, Samiel, before he fell, becoming Lucifer, wasn't the only angel that was able to fall, or that did fall. He took the other angels that decided to follow him with him. But the way that I sort of looked at it was, Morgoth was Samiel, basically. Like, he rebelled against God in heaven to try and he had these ambitions, and he was still evil. Like, he was in heaven and he was still evil. He rebelled against God, and he had all these ambitions, but he was unsuccessful. And then he fell and became Lucifer. So I see Morgoth and Sauron really two sides of the same coin. Morgoth is, Samiel before he fell from heaven, and Sauron is Lucifer after he fell, and is now and now rules hell, basically, is sort of how I see that. Because when you get, this is a vast oversimplification, but Morgoth failed in what he was attempting to do, plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and again, these aren't perfect analogies, because he wasn't intending them to be allegories, and so they're definitely open to interpretation or applicability, as he said, and a lot of the scholars have said about this. But he was very conscious because of that. Gosh, we've got some really intelligent conversations going on today, and in the chat, lots of really deep things going on here. Now, I think we're not going to go forward with any more content. We aren't going to be able to get through the book at all. We only got through the introduction, but of course, I'm wanting to do a ton of these, and hopefully, if need be, several for each book, time permitting and everything, because it is so rich and so deep. And while the movies are amazing adaptations, and I will stand by that, of the Lord of the Rings novels, they just don't take the place of them at all. No. There's just so much richer. So if you haven't picked up the books and read them, go ahead and do it, especially if you're sick of all this garbage that's going on with them destroying all these franchises. Go back to the great one.
Absolutely.
Now, Justin did have a question he wanted us to ask. I was going to ask when we got to the end of the book, which I thought was going to be today, but obviously we didn't have too much to talk about. Is there something from the Fellowship of the Ring, from the book, that you would have wished Peter Jackson had included that he had not?
Besides Tom Bombadil?
Yeah, that's an obvious one. I mean, everyone says that, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Oh gosh. Well, there's actually so much.
Well,
I think
I'm gonna put you on the. Sorry, go ahead.
no. I think I'll tell you what. Out of what we've covered, we'll I'll pull from what we've covered. I think that something that we've all hit on a bit. I think I wish that there had been a better representation of the passage of time. Specifically after Bilbo left and Frodo took possession of the ring, because it makes it seem like it all happened in like a fortnight when it actually happened over decades. And a lot transpired in that point of time, and so it would make more sense that, kind of like what Stieg said earlier, how the ring was able to sort of maybe slowly corrupt Frodo being next to him for all of that time, even though he never touched it or put it on. So I think that I would have liked to have seen, even if they'd only made it like 5 years, because what it really feels like, and I mean, this is me Monday morning quarterbacking, of course, but what I would have kind of liked to see is, even if it had been 5 or 10 years of time passage, because it really felt like Bilbo left, Mordor captured Gollum, tortured the information out of him. Gandalf was able to make it to Minas Tirith and back in like a blink of an eye, and find exactly what he was looking for. Like, it was literally like you spent 30 seconds in Minas Tirith, like, which is, we didn't. Oh gosh, we haven't even touched on all that. Is a whole other thing that I won't get into. But I would have liked to see more passage of time, because Gandalf spent ages looking for what he suspected. So I would have liked to have seen maybe a bit more time somehow represented, because it really felt like it was a fortnight and it just all went boom.
Yep. You know what, though? Gandalf spending so much time looking for information about the ring and all that, you'd think that information would be easier to find.
You would. I mean, it did pass into legend, so there's that.
But still, elves would know.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Did they know and they just weren't sharing? I don't recall from the books.
Well, they knew about the necromancer and stuff from the Hobbit period. So you'd think they'd...
Honestly, I think that I feel like Gandalf should have been a bit more informed, like, especially since he was in the, like, he was with Bilbo. I'm just saying, like, I know that here's the other thing that the movie sort of robs you of, that the book it represents so well, is the when Gandalf finds, first of all, in the book, I think what it had been translated like 4 times and he could still barely read it or something like that. But how you discover that it actually is, it's the secret that now only fire can tell, that it is actually the One Ring. It faded, and when he finds that, because he has been searching for something, some kind of way to identify if this is just so. And this was, I'm sure Stieg will remember this. This was a big piece of contention with that website, .net, not .com. The OneRing.com. Go see them; they're great people. But with the .net folks, this was a big thing of contention, because they said there was only 19 rings of power. There's 20.
They don't know how to count.
They forgot the thing that their website was named after, for the love of God.
They just kind of forgot about the One Ring.
I'm pretty sure you all know this, but for people who's watching, if you take the numbers in the Ringverse, right, and reverse it, you get the year Tolkien died.
Oh.
Ooh.
You get 1973.
Oh my gosh.
Which is eerie, especially since it kind of ends with men doomed to die.
Holy moly.
That's
Yeah.
All right.
And
wow.
I have another piece of trivia that actually a lot of people don't know. Tolkien was a student of medieval history and warfare and all that stuff, right? In Spain, in the city of Bilbao, they had a short sword called the Bilbao blade. For short, it was called the Bilbo blade, and it looks exactly like Sting.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's where he got. I'm pretty sure that's how Bilbo got the name.
Yeah, especially
That's
since
amazing.
Tolkien was a scholar of all that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's amazing. But yeah,
oh my gosh.
What?
I was just going to say, Lady Toriel says, but the elves drew away from the world to let men find their way. I was kind of thinking that too, that they really weren't interested in it. They were ready to move on back to the West.
Yeah,
and it was
like I said, that's where Bombadil and the elves, they sort of like, that's where you see this break, because the elves have grown weary of the world, and you know, they don't want to be the shepherds of it, because what people don't realize is it takes a lot of work for you to get somewhere and to earn something, but what takes even more work is to maintain it, because once you have that's why, so like, this is true of anything, whether it's relationships, a house, a job, you know, like if you show up for a job interview and you get the job and then you never show up to work, you're not going to keep that job, you know. If you ask someone,
oh, sorry, carry on.
Oh no, I was gonna say, if you get, you know, if you ask someone to marry you and then you never show up, or you get married and then you just like never talk to them, or never like you're not involved with them after that, you know, that's not a marriage. Your marriage will fall.
You don't cultivate it.
Yeah. So the idea of continuing to maintain the world, I'm sure, was extremely exhausting for them, especially because they are so long lived and they've been doing it for, you know, quite some time, which is fair. But again, they forgot what it was like to live with joy, and to appreciate what is around you. And they went more, again, like I said, they became much more prideful, and kind of bitter.
Yeah, well, kind of, maybe more bitter than prideful, because it just reminds me that the elves, because they saw many risings and fallings of failing, that history was for them one long defeat. That's what Tolkien had said history was. It was one long defeat. So it's hard enough. I'm reaching middle age. I'm in my 40s. I'm seeing one big long failure. You know, I saw the defeat of communism and seeing it all rising up again, and all sorts of things happening. And I'm only in my 40s. Imagine you're like 3,000 years old and you've seen it happen again.
I imagine immortality would get very tiring.
Precisely. And so I think they kind of are at the point where they were like, whatever. Fine.
Yeah, that's something. I think no matter how old you live to be, granted, I'm not going to live to be 3,000 years old, but I think that's something that you can't ever forget. And if you do end up forgetting or losing the ability to do so, you need to find a way to appreciate what's around you, because when you look at everything in a nihilistic and defeatist kind of way, you are just going to want to run. You are going to have that break. You are going to become a recluse, or sort of like what we see now. Everybody is pushing their delusions as something that must be accepted and lauded by everyone else, because if anybody breaks their delusion, then the person that did it is responsible for their unhappiness, for that person.
It's actually it's I've seen people claim it's actually violence to do that.
Yeah.
Which is
so that's sort of,
these people have never experienced violence.
I was about ready to say only someone that's never experienced violence would say that.
Yeah, so that's sort of where we've arrived, and you know, that's because we can't. People just don't remember or don't care to put in the effort to actually appreciate and see. There's a difference between contentment and complacency. Complacency is, of course, when you reach a certain point and you never do it, like it, you go on autopilot. you never actually try to even you don't grow vertically or laterally. You just stay where you're at, and things slip through the cracks and stuff happens, and you just sort of let everything go. Where contentment is, you don't feel the need to grow laterally anymore, so you grow vertically. Like you become sort of like what Tolkien did. He became an expert, like languages and history. Like he couldn't go very much further up than being a professor at Oxford and a world renowned. Like you can't really go up from. I mean, I'm sure there's more that he maybe wanted to do, or maybe he had a dream that he didn't realize, perhaps. But really, there was nowhere more going up from where he was in that field. But he did grow out. He expanded his knowledge. He expanded his experience. He expanded that base. And so he was content with where he was at, but he wasn't complacent. And there is that difference, because when you're content in where you're at, you still have the ability and the drive to still be able to grow vertically if that opportunity ever arises again.
I think it has to, in order to do that, you have to maintain your interests and broaden them, right? As you grow older. And I firmly believe that, you see a lot of people when they get adults, they kind of settle and they lose interest. They just watch TV. They work, they eat, they watch TV, go to bed, right? And they have no interest away from that. I firmly believe that it's happened because they killed the kid in themselves. And I think, like we're doing, right? We're talking about something from our childhood, literally, Lord of the Rings. And I think if you can feed the kid in you, you'll have a happier life, because you'll keep a little bit of that amazement you had when you were a kid, and that will lead you to explore more things rather than just settle for,
yes,
everyday things. Not that there's anything wrong with that either, but it's just, personally, I wouldn't want to live that way.
No,
I want to get excited for a brand new fantasy book, or whatever it is, or spend
video game.
That too, because that's visual storytelling. But and also just sit down for a whole evening and just do research and read about Gondor, whatever it is. So I think it's very important to like I said, feed the kid in you.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think, in many ways, isn't that Tolkien did, and he was kind of sharing it with the rest of us as well. Because for him, part of that fun and geeking stuff was, I feel like writing a language today, and he did. He not just made things like Elvish, he then had High Elvish and dialects of it, and kept it going as well. Dang it, that's a good point. Well, Steve, that I spend a lot of time crafting. I still make little dolls and things, and I make them based on little geek things, the same way I used to when I was a little girl, and I give them as gifts at Christmas. And
I spend every Thursday talking about Star Wars with Alora, coffee chat. But it's that actually goes back to what Lady Greymaster was saying about world building and lore. I bitch about lore breaking on Twitter all the time, and this is why. If you destroy the lore, you destroy the whole thing, because it's the foundation the story is built on, and even the framework that keeps it all together. If you destroy that, the story is destroyed, because it's there for a reason.
Yeah. Well, think about it. When you were playing with your action figures, or I was playing with my dolls and all that.
You saw that? Oh, sorry. No.
No, but I mean, when you would play, when I would play, I'll use I so I don't get a smart ass comment like that again. With my Barbies and things, we would have these little premises. And if you broke the lore, even of what was going on at the pool party at the Barbie mansion, someone would call you out and say, "Nuh-uh, that's not what we're doing. That's not what we said."
Mhm.
So even as children, we knew continuity and lore and world building.
Well, you know what though? Playing with action figures and all that, it's more coming up with a story than it is playing. If you think about it, because you'd come up with characters for this and that,
And that's why I think
toy
sorry,
and
yeah.
and it's shit. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Well, you seem like that you would come up when you're with your play, you would come up with stories and
Yeah, it is
conflict.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's and this is the action figure era for kids is kind of gone. Because it's all about PlayStations now and all that, and they're playing Skyrim and whatever else. But isn't the character in Skyrim though just a 3D animated action figure?
Yep.
And those old Lego stuff where you built a city and all that's a city builder game on the PlayStation. It's the same thing. It's just that you don't have to clean up afterwards.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Well, in tabletop games, role-playing games.
Yeah, and those shooter games, Call of Duty and stuff.
Yep.
It's basically the kids running around with plastic pistols around the house.
Cowboys and Indians. Yes.
Yep.
Oh,
cops and robbers. Bang bang. What? That's what it's called.
Okay.
That's what it's
my
called.
channel's not monetized, so it can't be demonetized.
I actually played as the Indian one once.
Oh no!
And it wasn't popular when I was shooting the other kids with a bow and arrow. Let's put it that way.
Oh my god!
So eventually, it had to be cowboys and cowboys.
Cowboys and cowboys.
One of them started bleeding.
Ouch! Yeah, but I'm talking about for real tabletop games because they still are alive and they're even gaining in popularity. With the kids in my life, the teenagers, they play Dungeons and Dragons at lunchtime.
Not a good thing.
Yeah, but not the new expansions though.
Yeah, no. Everything from the 4th edition and up to now, which is the 5th edition, it's woke garbage.
Crap.
It's really woke garbage, and it's dumbed down. Yeah,
Second edition D&D still sells better than 4th and 5th. I don't think combined, but I think it sells better than both.
Yeah, because in the 5th edition, you don't even get skill points, so you just get stuff when you level up, even though the character has never been using it. So you just get handed this and that ability, and what it's led to is, let's say the 3 of us are playing D&D, right? And all of us are playing a ranger. 2 of us will have identical characters because of that. Because the only thing that matters that differentiates is the race, because gender does nothing. You don't get bonuses or penalties from genders. So it's so simplified, and
games are becoming. I mean, they don't. Like if you look at a toy commercial from the 80s or 90s and you look at a toy commercial now, it's so insane the difference, because back in the 80s and 90s it was, look at this, like, rock'em sock'em robots, get yourself in the ring and beat your, and it was like you would watch the kids play with the toys. And now it's just like they pan over the Barbie doll. They're like, come play with Barbie and her dream camper, but there's no actual kids playing with the toys. It's just the toys sitting there, and then they'll do like cuts where Barbie will be in like different positions and poses, but that's it. There's no kids playing with these toys in the commercials.
It's just because it might be offensive. And if you look at the toys today, in general, I actually looked at a couple because I was looking for those old commercials that I put on my channel, and I saw a couple of them, and I'm like, kids today are pussies if they play with that. Sorry, they are.
Stieg hates me.
It breaks and you got to buy a new one again in 10 seconds anyway. Like,
yeah, it's just so pansy. There's nothing cool about it. It's just like the most neutral looking toy you can ever come up with. So look, it's a guy with a potato like head, and he's smiling, and he's sitting in a pink car.
What's hilarious too is this push to try and this push to try and get boys out of like action figures and guns and knives and bow and arrows and stuff like that, and to bring girls into like action figures and all. They're like, girls, you can do this too. And like, you know what the most popular selling toy for girls is still? Freaking baby dolls. Like, ages 3 to 7, they still want a baby doll. Like, it doesn't like and yes, the study was done in Russia. I do not. The parameters of this study, I do not condone. It was done in Russia and whatnot. But like, basically, they took these kids, and some of them they did all these different age ranges. They had all these toys scattered about, mix of what mostly boys would play with and mostly girls would play with. Some kids went for the toys that were closest to them, and then they get bored with it, and they'd go to the next one and the next one until they found a toy that they actually liked. So some of them would go for the toy right in front of them. But there were others, and a majority of them, like several of the boys, they ran towards 3 things. I wonder, could you guys maybe guess what those are? Maybe. What's your best guess? Yeah, one of the 3. What do you think's at least one of the 3? What do you think?
Well, I certainly hope one of the boys didn't go for the Barbie doll, because then I'd put him on hormone blockers.
No.
So the 3 most.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the 3 most common toys that the boys ran for. Number 1 was cars. The little Matchbox cars. Yeah. Number 2 was like superhero masks and capes and like cowboy hats. So like cowboy hats and superhero capes was number 2. And the Nerf guns were number 3 or whatever. Yeah, like the Nerf guns were number 3. Those were the 3 most common toys that the boys ran for. The girls had 2 that were the most common between the girls. Mm-hmm. It was baby dolls and kitchen stuff. Like, they would play kitchen. And there was no, like, this was, and it was different ages in different groups with the exact same toys, the exact same setup, and it was consistent throughout every single age range.
Yeah.
Until the kids got closer to like 9 and 10. More of the 9 and 10-year-olds. So the boys still went for the cars, the capes, and the guns, but girls were going more towards. There were still a couple of baby dolls, but they were doing more stuff with the kitchen and more stuff with like books and paints and stuff like that. So they were like doing more painting stuff.
So every time people get pissed at me for saying women belong in the kitchen, I can now back it up. Thank you.
Hey, put me in the kitchen any day. Well, speaking
you want me to cook for you anyway, because Norwegian food.
Exactly. I will. Yeah, you put me in the kitchen, I'll just tell you what to cook for me. Perfect. Yep. Yeah, we got a plan. But I have a non-scientific study. When I was in college, I taught daycare in the summer, had the 3-year-old room, and they would be at little stations. So they'd go like to the kitchen station, they go to this station, that station. And when a bunch of them went to the kitchen station, I was like, what are they doing? Because something was going on. And one of the boys had one of the other kids lying on a table, and the other girls holding knives and forks and he was sitting there leaning over and going, scalpel or knife. And he was doing pretend surgery. He turned it into an operating theater within minutes. And it was so hilarious because it was perfect. He was very efficient, and they were all doing a pretend surgery. So you could even put him in a kitchen with that and all that, and he turned it into an operating thing. It was amazing. And, of course, he was the head doctor. So that, I guess, makes him toxic. But and not only do they do that, they also go for fireman costumes and doctors and ambulance and what's the other one? Oh, tools. They'll go walk around with toolboxes and pretend they're fixing things, which is great, by the way, because I suck at fixing things. I want boys to be trained very well in that. Yeah. Lots of good comments in here. Yeah. Hobbits and kitchens go together. Yeah. And Justin, I don't know if you were there, but this conversation came out in a very roundabout way from us talking about what we wanted there to have been from the book in the movie, which you wanted us to ask. So I did ask it. And I don't know if you were there to hear that. I operated on a few pies in my life. Yeah. But Justin also wanted us to maybe ask at the end about the indexes. So that's more maybe towards the end of the whole epic. But do you think that Peter Jackson should have included the indexes, maybe even post credits, if I heard you correctly, Justin? I'll say yes. I wish he had. I don't know about ye. Or not? I mean, maybe why not? I mean, it was there. They did film some of it. They could have done a montage, maybe.
Yeah, but it's like what Jack Nicholson apparently said. The movie had too many endings, and he's right. It works in the book, but that doesn't mean it's a fantastic idea on screen.
Yeah,
because Jack Nicholson had a point. There's like a lot of endings in Return of the King.
Yeah.
You just go from end scene to end scene, and you can't put everything in a book on screen. They're different mediums.
Yeah.
I
think the way that they ended it was probably I can't think of here's the thing. There may be a better way to have ended the film. I cannot think of one. That is not something that I could probably do, because, and again, this is why everybody's like, well, the books are always better than the movies, but again, you're right, they're different mediums. You can do so much more in a book than you can on screen, and really, I think it would almost get exhausting to just see all of those, and you'd be like, okay, when is it really over? Because I've been in those movies too, where they fade to black and you think it's over, and then all of a sudden it's the screen goes bright again, and you're like, okay, I guess it's not. And then it fades to black, and then it goes bright again, and you're like, oh my god, I am now fatigued. I'm fatigued with this. Just end it.
Yeah, and then the end credits scene too. They should have had that in Return of the King, like a really old Sam just sitting there and then just croaking and killing over.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, Justin, I understand. I guess he was joking a little bit about that, mea maxima culpa, but we did actually ask that question. I think you weren't actually in the chat when we talked about what we wanted to see in there. And we'll do more of that as we continue with the various books. There's only one part that I really, truly wish they had included in some sort of a way. It was Faramir and Eowyn wedding, because I'm biased, but also they filmed it, and apparently it was the costume designer's favorite costume was Eowyn's wedding dress. So I can imagine being the costumer going, what? I definitely feel though that the things that were in the extended edition with Eowyn being healed and meeting Faramir and the stuff with Eomer a little bit, they should have kept that in theatrical edition.
I agree. The theatrical edition.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, they did add a little bit of Eowyn and Faramir in the extended version, though.
Yeah.
But no, that's what I'm saying is that I think that should not have been in the extended. I don't think that was an extended thing. I think that was essential that they should have put that in there because it was so much a part of the story, and that we had seen, if for no other reason, we'd seen them dead, and then next thing you know, they're just like, yay, here we are. That's all. I wanted them for. I think that they should have moved it into the theatrical. They should not have cut it from the beginning, from the theatrical. But yeah, what they did in the extended edition, I can live with.
The extended edition is what people watch anyway.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, in the theatrical edition, I remember Éowyn and Faramir, like, they just look at each other at Aragorn's, oh my god, I know what that word is. Coronation. Yeah. So they just, like, they look at each other, and you're like, oh, they found each other. But, like, that's all you get. You get, like, a look. And you're like, that's it. There's more. There's so much more.
I know.
Yeah. Where is it? Like, because
I know. I was you have no idea how mad I was. And the extended edition satiated that a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is I don't know who talked Peter Jackson out of it. If it was Tom Shippey, if it was Christopher Tolkien, I don't know who did it, but thank God for them, because apparently there was supposed to, like, they were going to have Arwen fight at Helm's Deep, which would have completely undercut Éowyn, and I'm so thankful that never made it in. But then also apparently there was a Arwen and Aragorn, like, love scene, and that got cut too, and I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. And everybody's like, well, see, Peter Jackson wanted to do it, and I'm like, but he didn't. That is the point. He listened to the Tolkien estate and Tom Shippey, who's an actual Tolkien expert, and Christopher Tolkien, who was the head of the estate. Like, he didn't put that in there, and that's what matters. Yeah. Like, it
exactly what made it to the what made it to the final cut. And well, not only that, he even says in some of the commentary that they did put some things in the screenplay to sell it, because Hollywood looks for certain things.
Yeah.
And so they're like, where's the sex scene? Oh, okay, there it is. But yeah, they definitely, they did not need an intimacy coordinator for that version. And I think that that's the other reason why we don't want it in this Amazon. It's not because we're prudes. We watch Game of Thrones. We read the books for crying out loud. We don't want it in Tolkien because it's lore breaking. It's just not what it is. I mean, we know they all had sex because they had babies. I mean, Sam had 9 of them, but it's not within Tolkien's manner of storytelling. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. There's no hot and heavy scenes in there. There's no graping. There's none of that. I make no secret of this. I am not a Martin fan. I didn't care for. My husband loves them. He loved the show. He loves the books. I feel bad for everybody that is still waiting on the book. I don't think you're ever going to see it because it is past 10 years since the last one was published, and he has done other works since then. He has edited, he has co-written, he has done screenplays. He's
done everything he promised not to do until he finished the book.
Exactly. He is lied. Like, everybody's getting upset with, I know that we're going way off track here, but everybody's getting upset with, and rightfully so, Kevin Smith for lying to them about this Masters of the Universe Revelation woke the Tila show, and rightfully so, because he straight up lied. He's only been doing that for about a year now. We're going on, like, we're past a decade of Martin lying to his fans, like, about, and I don't know what is happening. I don't know what.
I know what's happening. The way book 5 ends, right, is with all the characters spread out. None of them are next to each other at this point, which wasn't the case in the first four books. And there's like 2 or 3 novels being written in between the scenes as well. or in in between the sentences. But I think the main reason is because he's gotten high on being a celebrity, which is why he
I would
says
agree.
yes to everything that puts him in the spotlight. That's what I think.
He has his own one ring, doesn't he?
Yeah. I completely understand why book 6 is very difficult and it's taking time. Absolutely, but it shouldn't take 10 years, especially since he had 400 or 500 pages left over when he released book 5. So he had 500 pages then, to as a fresh start.
Yep.
As a head start. But I think he's just gotten high on the fame.
It's something for sure. Like I don't know if it's so much fame. Yeah, I don't know if it's so much fame as it is relevance. Like that seems to be. I know the two are not mutually exclusive. Like I know that they walk hand in hand and whatnot, but I think because he has the fame from the books, but it didn't really become this global phenomenon until the show, from my understanding. Like I said, I was not a fan. I'm not. There's enough nihilism in the real world. I don't need it in my escapism, basically, is kind of how I'm approaching that. I have other issues with it, but that's a big one. But just the way that he is treating his fans at this point, because I don't understand what these celebrities don't get. Like, you didn't become famous. This is going to sound so bad, but you didn't become famous because of you. I'm not saying you didn't put in the work. I'm not saying that you didn't earn, like, yes, you have put yourself in the position to potentially become famous. But if the fans don't like you, then, you're done. Like, it doesn't matter how much you want it or how great you think you are. If you don't hit that chord with people, that's something you can't fake. That's not something that you can just pull out of the sky. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's, for lack of a better word, it's who the heck do you think you are? We made you, and we believed you. That's the thing. Like, how dare you just come back and try to gaslight us? Like saying, how dare you want to finish the books I talked you into buying and reading? It's the height of arrogance, and I'm at the point where I just call it cruel.
Yeah, not like that. That's what I'm saying is I'm not saying so much that, because George is like, there's so many people resonated with this book. Obviously, the man's got talent. Like Tolkien had, like, there's a lot of talented people that die hungry, though. Like, I'll just say that. But what makes someone famous is, like, you can have all the talent in the world, but your fans and your fandom, like, that is what elevated you. It's the other people that came to love and appreciate your work and became fans of your work. Whereas the way that I see him, taking this long on the book, while, like, if it had been 10 years of just writing this book and there was so much going into it and it was going to be like 2,000 pages, I could completely understand.
Especially it's going to be close to 2,000.
Well, I thought he said it was going to be around 1,500, but I could be wrong. But
1,500 in print.
So, well, I mean, that's incidental. I think the point that Lady Greymaster is making is that if he was doing this, writing the book.
Yeah. If it had been the whole 10 years focusing on the book, that would be a different story. But he has publicly and blatantly been going out there and doing everything except the book. He shares different, what is it, the aces or whatever, like, he that's what I've been saying. He's co-writing for other people. He's editing for other people. He's going on to talk shows and TV shows. And, like, yes, it's important if you wanted to let your audience know, I'm still working on the book. This is what's developing. I'm making certain changes, this, that, and like, again, if everything had been dedicated to the goal of finishing this book, I think it'd be a different story. But because he is not doing that, people are starting, at least from my view, it seems like a lot of his fans feel very betrayed and are starting to get somewhat bitter because, I mean, let's not, like, George is not getting any younger.
No, and he's not looking healthy either. But
no,
as a huge fan of George Martin, though, I think he's one of the best writers I've ever read. And if he sticks the ending, if it ever happens, right? If he gives the whole thing a great ending, in my opinion, he will be up there in the area with Tolkien. But until he finishes, it doesn't count. That's the thing.
Well, it's like Neurotic, I think, said it very well when some stupid idiot was saying that we wanted to make George R.R. Martin our witch. Something rhymes with witch.
Oh, I think you said bitch.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, that's the word you're looking for. It was bitch.
I'm gonna meet. Okay. As I was trying to say without saying the word, and then
my bad.
Oh yes, I know. You knew. He knew exactly what he was doing. Neurotic then said, "We're not gonna make Tolkien our bitch." There you go. Happy now, Steve.
Yeah.
But he's gonna be Tolkien's bitch.
Yeah.
No,
I have to blow the whole horn of Gondor every morning.
Here's the thing: when you make claims against the father of the fantasy genre, and you come out and you say that this is wrong, he should have done it. Like, when you come out swinging like that, you have to be able to deliver, and he's still 2 books short of delivering. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter that they're like, well, we have an ending. All right, and maybe that was George's ending. Maybe that was the planned ending for George, but
no, it wasn't.
It's that's what I'm saying. Like,
you know
that,
what,
at this point, it's the only one people have, and until George finishes the books, that argument is going to be an open argument. Yeah, he did steal the R's from Tolkien's name. He did, but
yeah, well, he said he did that as a, to honor
homage.
Tolkien.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know, but it's still a there's for me, like I said, I'm not saying he's not talented.
He's lazy.
Exactly. He has to be talented because all of these people have, there's people around the world who love this story.
Yeah.
But again, that whole thing, that getting back into why the elves are so tired, maintaining, like, you have to finish, you have to maintain, you have to build a foundation that's going to last. You have to build something that's going to be worth it. And now,
you know what the sad bit is? Mm-hmm. He's written 5 out of 7 books, right?
Yeah.
But book 6 and 7 are supposed are going to be at least 1,500 pages each, which means George Martin is only halfway done with the series.
True.
In terms of page numbers,
you're right.
He's just halfway done.
Yep.
And he started it in the early 90s. I mean, look at what Robert Jordan did. He started around the same time. And the Wheel of Time series is 14 bricks. And he dished out a book once a year or every second year. He passed away, though, and had Brandon Sanderson finish up. And he did well enough, I think. It was it was a satisfying ending,
Yeah.
But so Robert Jordan could do it, and the Wheel of Time, while not as complex as the Song of Ice and Fire, it's still very complex in terms of your average fantasy series.
Yeah.
Because the world is about, the Wheel of Time world is probably about as big as Middle Earth. It's not as heavy on the lore though as Middle Earth,
Yeah,
but it's
I'd say it's as big.
it's
It's
still
just
in
not as
the
deep.
it's still in the same alley in terms of huge piece of work.
Yeah.
That is if you compare it only to the Lord of the Rings though, with the appendices and all that. But
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's the problem. I think another problem that really comes in is people know that he's capable of finishing, or at least they would assume he's capable of finishing. And he's just choosing not to, and that's gotta be hard too. Because the thing is, I don't remember, the 9th book is spring something, or the 7th book is spring.
A Dream of
something,
Spring.
right?
A Dream of Spring.
So it gives the idea, like the title itself gives you the idea that winter has ended. They're dreaming of spring, it's things have gotten dark, but then eventually like they get to spring. Like right now, I mean, not everybody, like I like winter because I enjoy cocoa and skiing and snow and stuff like that, but I wouldn't want no White Walkers in my winters, that's for sure. But it's right now your audience is freezing in a bleak and terrible winter. You're sort of just abandoning them, and I don't know. I think I just think it's sad to see. And like when you look at something like Fellowship, it's the Fellowship is really deep, and there's so much going on in it, and it still manages to deliver. Now, the way that Tolkien wrote, of course, The Lord of the Rings, it's actually just one book broken into 3 parts. That's why it's The Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Like, it's just 3 sections of one book. At least that's how I read it. And so maybe that's why.
Yeah, each of them are divided into, what is it, 4 books?
Yes.
Or something?
So it's, it's I guess when you look at what you've been able to accomplish and what was delivered in just 4 books, if we want to put The Hobbit in there, it's George isn't even close yet. So,
no, he's halfway done.
Yeah.
Not even
And like I said, I get why he's having problems with all the interconnecting threads between probably 1,000 characters. Who knows what, who's spoken to who, right? What did they say? All that stuff. And then you have the back history too, that is really important in the story. So I get why it's taking long. I do, but 10 years, that's where my patience starts to wear thin, especially when I see him being on all kinds of panels and gatherings with other celebrities, and he's posting that he went to watch a football match, traveled half the country to do that.
Well, and he trolls us too, and he knows what he's doing because he's not a stupid man. He's like, oh yeah, I'm writing it, but first I need to go do this. I need to do that.
You know what it could do? And that would help? Release half the book. Call it The Winds of Winter Part 1. And then later, put them together into one book or something. Because it's been 10 years since book 5. Does he expect everyone to remember what happened in book 5?
Yeah, and that's actually what I was going to say. I was like, I almost wonder if he's forgotten a lot of what he wrote, because it's been a long time for everybody. So, I mean, I almost wonder if he's sort of forgotten and is trying to like re-pick up threads. Because when you make comments like trolls on the internet are holding me to a deadline, I'm just going to stop giving out deadlines.
He's the one who set the deadline.
What? Yeah, it's like, what? You said we were allowed to jail you if you weren't done. Like, don't blame this on someone else.
Every time a deadline is being brought up, he's the one who says it.
Precisely. And then judges us if we get PO'd that he doesn't meet it.
Considering how the next book, well, yes, of course he is. He every writer who's writing a series like that does that between every book,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
you know. But the Game of Thrones TV show, most people who have read the books understand how the show doesn't follow the books at all after season 4. It just becomes a series of wow and shock moments. That's it, for no good reason, which is why there's plot holes galore. You know.
Well, and from my understanding, they rushed quite a bit of it. There's apparently a lot of stories that they didn't even touch on that they could have. So that's also on them a bit.
Oh yeah, and they missed out on the main villain. They turned him into a good guy, and they spent a whole episode of Jon Snow and a few others going north of the wall to capture a zombie, right?
Uh-huh.
And then they do that, and they go to King's Landing, and they show it off to Cersei, and they kill it with a dragon glass thing. And they say, "Yeah, this is the only way you can kill these things. You need dragon glass or fire." I'm like, "No, you don't. You beat them to death with a sledgehammer in the previous episode."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you have to kill the White Walkers with dragon glass or something, but not the zombies.
No. Yeah, I mean, there's just so
I'm like,
many different levels of this.
You just wasted a whole episode. All you had to do was go, yeah, this is what a zombie looks like. You can kill them in any way you want. Even the wolf killed one.
Yeah.
He didn't have dragon glass teeth.
Nope, he did not. You're right. Oh my god.
He was a dire wolf.
This is a great advertisement for a very long one for the Song of Ice and Fire book stream, which Stieg and I are a part of on Sporking's news channel on Monday nights, hopefully. We were going through the books, and also we talk about theories, and now and then rage at Martin for being who he is.
You know what, though? If people are raging about it, sorry, there's 100 other series you can read instead. You don't have to wait for one book.
Yeah,
I mean, you can read Lord of the Rings, the Shannara series by Terry Brooks. Raymond Feist has a 26-book series called Rift War, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. It has ended as well and had a great ending. The Bob Salvatore ones about the Dark Elf, that they're still ongoing after 40 books, which has to be some kind of record, actually. And you have all kinds of other writers. Joe Abercrombie is a new and up-and-comer, amazing writer. People are not lacking for good fantasy books. I mean, Robert Jordan, too. That's 14 Bricks.
Yeah, and he finished them even literally unto death. So well done, Jordan.
Well, and I think
most of the final chapter is written by him.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is because people are like waiting for something to be brought to them. They don't want to go out searching, which is a disservice to yourself. But, a lot of people are lazy. They want it to be brought to them and they want to be told that it's... Huh?
They can have Amazon deliver it on their doorstep.
There you go. Yeah, but like what I mean, but I'm wondering, like, the Wheel of, oh God, that's a whole other thing. But Wheel of Time is also about to hit Amazon Prime. God help us all. I don't know if you guys have seen the art for it yet.
They have which is basically a side character on the cover.
Yeah,
the main character whose male is not on it, and 60% of the cast is race swapped, and it does not make sense within that universe.
And then you're looking at the art that they've put out, and I think she's supposed to be in front of a way gate, and you're like, if that's what I think it is, this is going to be a disaster. Yeah, like it's going to be a huge disaster. But so
and I actually caught them in changing the story because they put up character bios.
Oh no!
And they had one of Perrin who they race swapped, and they're like, Perrin is trying to come to terms with the loss of his parents and blah 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 after a Trolloc attack. I'm like, his parents doesn't die until book 5.
Yeah.
So basically, they're killing them off in the attack on the village in book 1.
Oh God.
So they've already changed him, which means a whole shitload of his journey won't be there.
Yeah, it can't be. Oh, I just follow the source material.
Yeah, and I saw an old tweet, I think it was, from the showrunner, and he said he wanted this fantasy world to be what he envisions the United States to be in terms of diversity.
Yeah,
in
like
100
40
years.
years or something. Yeah,
Something like that.
saw
It was
that.
like,
God dang it.
yeah, I'm like, that's not what that world is.
No,
you have different countries with different stuff in them.
Yep. Oh my God, follow the source material, Hollywood. It's not that hard.
Yeah, they don't intend to. They want to destroy the source material. That's what they want to do.
Yeah, they want it to be the real world or their ideal world, which is
Well, and see, like, I wonder how many people have actually read Wheel of Time, like all of it. Like, who's actually read it and who is just now learning about it because it's on Amazon? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that's what I'm getting. Like, there's so much lore. There's so many great stories. There's so much that could occupy your time that isn't this modern feminist intersectional nihilistic BS that just
that story already has feminism.
I was gonna say
plenty of strong characters, but it makes sense.
That's like what they did. So a perfect example, what they did with Anne Boleyn, that short, whatever, that little short series where they're like, well, we're making her black because we really wanted it to show how much she struggled. And I'm like,
that's not
the woman got her head chopped off. Like,
that she didn't struggle because of her skin color, that's for sure.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with her skin color, like, at all. And so, they did that, but also, and everybody's like, well, Jane Austen, there's no she's public domain. Like, I don't care. I really don't care, but I don't care that she's public domain. What Jane Austen was able to do, like, everybody's like, oh, we need to put the CW has the rights to Jane Austen, by the way, folks. So get ready for some horrific.
Well, you know what though? The only piece of public domain you're allowed to piss on is a urinal.
Oh, nice one.
Beautifully said, Steve.
Yeah. The only positive thing I guess I can maybe think about with the Wheel of Time is, as you said, maybe people don't even know it exists. They'll go and read the books, and then they'll enjoy the books. And but beyond that,
this book series, I've been reading it since the 90s, so it's a part of my growing up, really.
Yeah,
and for me, it's a little bit like what's happened to Star Wars, but Star Wars got it worse though. But this is the same kind of crap, and we all know it's going to happen with the Lord of the Rings show.
Yeah,
that's going to be a woke mess.
Yeah. Well, the OneRing.com had said to me in that tweet when I was like, "Why are they doing this?" He's like, "Because they're preparing us because they know what's going to come, and so they're trying to gaslight us."
Yeah, they're shifting. They're shifting everything. They're trying to shift the stories and the scholar. They're like, well, this is what Tolkien scholars say, so they can't be wrong. Like, they're Tolkien scholars. Yeah,
exactly. According to themselves, the scholars that mattered all hauled ass out of there quickly.
Yes, they did.
They did. Well, and it's just tragic to see.
And you know what? Those scholars that left, they're not allowed to say anything because they're under an NDA.
Mm-hmm.
But it will be interesting to see what they have to say afterwards, though, when it expires.
Precisely.
But by then it will be too late. But that's, I think, when the big backlash is going to kick in. When the actual scholars are allowed to talk and say, yeah, no, Tolkien, had nothing to do with this and that from India or trans rights,
Yep.
Well, I do need to wrap up this party. For the record, we did get all the way up through chapter 7. That's where we stopped. That was about where I'd actually planned when I was putting this all together. I was just figuring out, man, there is so much material, and boy, did we find it. And so we stopped at.
Side note, I came up with a Tolkien sex toy.
Oh no!
Just I popped it. The Bombadildo.
Okay, Father Miller is not allowed to watch this.
Yeah, it would be too much to swallow.
Gosh, no!
What? What?
Steve said it, Father. If you're listening into this on a replay, Father's in Philadelphia right now, so he won't.
That was quite a mouthful.
Carry
on.
It's fine. We'll just pray for you. We'll throw some extra prayers in there.
Yeah, this stream sucks.
Well, there's Saint Olaf.
Anyway, just let's wrap up and ram it home.
Well,
it was supposed to be a deep dive stream, so I don't know.
What'd you say, Steve? I didn't.
Nothing.
I'll listen to it, and I'm sorry. I'm too busy making.
I don't know. I'm just adding to the conversation.
He's going into the depths as deep down as he can go.
Yeah.
Exactly. People are rebuking you in the chat, by the way, Steve.
I'm trying to make a point,
Okay. As I was saying, we got to the first part, the leaving of it. So we finished up through chapter 7. So if you want to follow along for our next time, we will be going probably the next 7 or 8 chapters, or about as far as we go thematically. I think that it worked out pretty well. We're going to be starting with chapter. Did we finish chapter 8? Yeah. No. We're starting chapter 8, Fog on the Barrow Downs,
which is an awesome chapter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So enjoy, everybody. If you haven't started, you got tons of time. I'm not saying this is a book club. I don't want to necessarily make it turn into that. But on the other hand, why not? If you feel like you want to join in, read, we'll see what time we can all make it all work out. It was fantastic having you, Lady Gravemaster, finally on my channel for the first time you debut. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, where can we find you?
I mean, I live on Earth, so that's where I'm mainly at. Sometimes I live up in the clouds, but I try to come back down every once in a while. No, but I do have a YouTube channel. I'm being a bit more active on it. I'm currently actually working on 2 Lord of the Rings videos. It's about the Tolkien Society and the Society of Tolkien. And so they're two. So Society of Tolkien was born because of what Tolkien Society was doing, because of the bastardizations that they were doing. And of course, I tried to screen record the Tolkien Society stuff, and there was a bug issue, and so I lost all of that. So I'm still working on it, but I'm actually deep diving because this stuff actually goes way back. It started a little bit before one point, but then something happened and it triggered this onslaught, and it's just become very heavy since that point. And so I'm actually having to do a lot of research about those. So I'm working on those 2 videos, but I will also be doing a video that should be coming out on either Tuesday or Wednesday. And it's actually a parallel with a couple of different shows that you might not actually connect, but that you can see the same things happening.
Okay, great. And could my mods go ahead, and if you can link to her channel and maybe her Twitter, I'd appreciate it greatly. Oh, thank you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm on Twitter and Insta too. You can find me Insta, same handle.
Okay, so there you go, Lady Gravemaster. As Kex already got you, Stieg, even though you don't want anyone to sub. Do not sub to Stieg. He doesn't like it. But
no, because then I have to make another video.
I'm going to do it.
There you go. He doesn't actually have
I'm already subscribed, but I'm going to do it again. I'm going to unsubscribe and resubscribe just to make you mad.
Everyone. There we go.
Doing it.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep my eyes open with this Tolkien Society versus Society of Tolkien, because I hope that they get a better social media presence, because I would like to keep that party going. So you can find me here. I'm usually, as I said, on Monday nights on the Song of Ice and Fire. I'm on Sunday night hangs with Nina on Nina Infinity's channel, and every now and then on Open Airlocks, his spacing, and definitely on his Babylon 5. So if y'all haven't seen Babylon 5, this is another perfect opportunity to go backwards. If you have HBO Max or other means, go ahead and watch it. It's definitely a great 90s sci-fi.
Do I get to plug things too, or?
Well, of course you do, Steve.
You skipped me like I was nothing but a piece of meat.
Well, you are a piece of meat, Steve.
Well,
Okay, yes, of course. You meant a different kind. All right, yes. Go ahead, Steve. Plug away.
yes, I am on OG Star Wars' channel on Thursdays for a Star Wars talk. And we've been doing it for a year, talking about the old comics and going through them 2 or 3 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there are puns, and sometimes Alora says inappropriate things that get the stream demonetized. Much to my grief, of course.
Shocked. I'm shocked.
Other than that, Sport King's channel talking about the books that came before the books we're never going to get. And what else? That's it. I think.
Yeah, we'll see you around.
Yeah, I'm here and there.
Catch him on Twitter. And...
co-pilot sometime, quite often on Mara's channel, Jade Shadow, where we talk about cringe stuff that happened during the week.
This week in cringe, yeah. So nice stuff there. Everyone follow each other, give each other love. Read Tolkien if you have already read Tolkien. Reread Tolkien. Read his biography. Read his letters especially, because that's straight from the man's mouth what he intended to do. So no amount of rewriting of history attempts by these Egypts that call themselves scholars can change what that man wrote. If you don't earn them hard copy, get them hard copy. Do not get them digitally. So that's all I've got to say for now. See you all next time. Stay tuned on Twitter and on YouTube, and hopefully I'll be able to let you know when we can do this again. And have a great day, everybody. Have a great day, and be certain to just read good fantasy. Goodbye.
And don't sniff glue.